Just about anybody who's ever retired in the history of retirement and the history of Earth has probably spent a fair amount of time wondering where their money is going to come from after they stop working. It's a question that everybody thinks about, everybody spends a lot of time fussing over, and we get a ton of questions about in our financial planning practice. So in today's video, I want to share a quick framework for how we should think about this, and my three favorite strategies for building retirement income after you give up the day job. Here's the framework we need to start with. While you're working, you're earning an income. You have income that comes in every single month. You have money that comes into the bank account. You're using some of that to pay the mortgage, pay for rent, keep the lights on, buy groceries, pay taxes. Hopefully, you have money coming in, you have the expenses going out. Hopefully, you have a little bit left over at the end of each month. And that little bit is what adds to your net worth every single month. Even if it stays in the bank account, it's adding to your net worth. Most people will decide to defer some of that money into a 401k or any other kind of retirement plan, right? Then when we transition into retirement, we're giving up our income. Income goes away, but we still have most of those other expenses, right? Our expense profile is probably going to even change a little bit. We might want to spend some time traveling, spend some more time on the golf course, things like that. So instead of having a surplus at the end of each month, now for most people, when we step into retirement, we're going to have a deficit. Or we might have some income coming in from various places, but our expenses probably exceed our income. So the very first step here is determining what are my spending needs going to be on a monthly basis when I retire, and what is my guaranteed income going to look like. That could be from a pension distribution, it could be from Social Security, it could be from an annuity payout perhaps. There are a lot of different shades of gray that might produce guaranteed income every single month. What guaranteed income is not is a distribution from your retirement or your investment accounts. It's guaranteed. Some other entity is contractually obligated to pay you every single month, rain or shine, regardless of what the markets or another factor is doing. So if we have X amount of dollars coming in, going out, excuse me, from our expenses, and we have Y dollars coming in, maybe you're spending $10,000 a month, you have $5,000 a month coming in from Social Security and a small pension. Well, the difference is $5,000. That's your retirement income gap. That's what we need to figure out how to plug, right? And so when we think about building retirement income, it's not with regard to only your expenses or only your guaranteed income. It's with regard to what is our gap? What do I need to do? How much money do I need to bring in each month to fill the gap between my spending needs and guaranteed income? Now, there are a ton of different ways to fill that retirement income gap. You could take all your retirement savings and fork them over to an insurance company in exchange for an annuity policy and simply increase the guaranteed income you have coming in, right? That balances the scales a little bit. You could also take all that money and go buy, I don't know, a couple of rental properties or something like that. That might produce some income to offset your retirement income gap. There's no shortage of opportunity here to balance the scales in this equation somehow to make sure that you have an adequate retirement plan going forward. The first of the three strategies we're going to cover today is called retirement guardrails. And this concept comes from the idea that most people are going to have some kind of retirement income gap, and the vast majority of Americans are going to fill at least part of that gap by taking money out of their savings every single month, right? Now, how much can you take out of your savings every month from your retirement accounts without running the risk that you're going to be destitute when you're 85 and running out of money when you're older? That's the $1,000,000 question. And this topic has been studied to death. You think of the 4% rule, you think of the Trinity study. There is a lot, there's no shortage of research out there trying to determine what's a safe withdrawal rate. But the problem with most of these studies is that all the research assumes a very level of spending and a very level retirement income gap. And the reality is that our spending kind of jumps around a little bit as we go through retirement. The concept of guardrails is one that incorporates that flexibility. And basically, the crux of it is, hey, if we think that 4% every single year for a 30-year retirement is a safe withdrawal rate, which means that if you have a $1 million retirement portfolio, you take no more than $40,000 a year adjusted for inflation from that account. If we think that the 4% rule is valid, that means that we're only taking 40 grand a year plus inflation from the accounts. Realistically, 40,000 every single year might not meet our needs because we might need only 30,000 in one year and then 50 or 60,000 in another because we want to take a trip. Guardrails provides some flexibility there. Now, not all that flexibility is under our discretion. What I mean by that is the concept of guardrails means that you can probably take more like 6% out of your accounts every single year, assuming that you're comfortable adjusting that up or down based on how that $1 million of investments is doing. And in good markets, when you're getting a lot of returns and the pot is growing, you can adjust that 6% up to maybe 7 or 8 or maybe even sometimes more than that percent in those years where your assets are growing. But remember that investing contains risk. They're not going to grow every single year, year in, year out, no matter what. There are going to be rainy days and market crashes and recessions. And in the years when the markets do crash and the value of your assets falls, then we take less out in those years. So I like this strategy because it enables you to take more out of your portfolio and have that confidence that everything's going to be okay, as long as you're comfortable tightening the belt a little bit in years where the markets are not very good, and alternatively expanding that a little bit. You don't have to, but you could in years when the markets are very strong. The second of my three favorite retirement income strategies is maybe relatively obvious, but it's part-time work. If we have your monthly spending needs minus your guaranteed monthly income, and that gives us our gap, well, if you just increase the monthly income from some part-time work, that eases the tension and the pressure, if you will, on your nest egg, on your assets. You simply have to take a little bit less out, and that improves the numbers and the chances that you're going to have a long-term successful retirement, sometimes dramatically. Now, that's the obvious part. Realistically, we've worked with a lot of families through this transition over the years. I don't think I've ever met anybody in my entire life that doesn't have some interesting but less lucrative part-time job that they might want to test out after they give up their career. I have an uncle who retired after a really long and successful career in the government, and he wanted to drive for Uber for a little while just to kind of check it out and talk to people and have some social interaction. And he didn't make very much money, but he made a little bit and he enjoyed it. And it was beneficial to their retirement plan. I have another friend whose pet project or side job, if you will, he's not in retirement yet, but he really wants to be the guy who walks up and down the aisles at baseball games selling peanuts and corn dogs and hot dogs. He's got a great voice for it. He's got a ton of energy, and it doesn't pay very well, but it's enriching and fulfilling in other ways. So exploring those kinds of ideas once your calendar is cleared up a little bit can really go to ease the pressure on your retirement income gap, and is a great way to incorporate some extra income in retirement. The other byproduct of this that I think people sometimes fail to realize is that it could really improve your ultimate Social Security benefits too. The way your Social Security benefits are determined, which is in that guaranteed income bucket, is they take the highest 35 years of your earnings history adjusted for inflation. And then they run some numbers, and that's what determines how much you get from Social Security when you file for your benefits. Well, a lot of people who are eligible for Social Security don't quite have 35 years of work experience. And if you only have 30, for example, the government is not taking the average of those 30 years that you do have. They're adding 5 years of zeros and taking an average out of 35. So if you have part-time work, even if it's minimum wage work, it's replacing those zeros with something that's positive. And if it's a position that's personally fulfilling and rewarding, even if it's making a very small amount of money, it can have double benefits, because not only do you have a little bit of money coming into your bank account, but it can increase the Social Security benefit you'll ultimately receive on top of that. The third type of retirement income strategy that I'd like to cover today, number three in my top three favorites for the day, is what I call the retirement account waterfall. Now, when I say those words, the context for them is that most people across the US today are saving for their own retirement in maybe a variety of a couple different types of accounts. By and large, the number one type of account most people are using is the 401k plan. You defer some of your salary while you're working into this tax deferred vehicle. You invest that money, it grows, it's all tax deferred, and then you take money out later, and every penny is counted as taxable income then. Well, you might have other types of accounts. Roth IRAs are a phenomenal tax benefit, and they have the exact opposite tax treatment as a traditional IRA or 401k. Every penny that you put into a Roth IRA is with taxable income. You do not get a tax break for putting money into the Roth IRA. The benefits come down the road, because when you put the money into the account, you invest it, it grows over years and years and years, hopefully decades and decades and decades. All that growth is tax deferred. You don't pay anything on capital gains or dividends or interest within the account. But then when you pull the money out of the account later, it's all tax free. On top of that, some of you might have taxable investment accounts, either in your name or maybe jointly with the spouse or in the name of a revocable trust, perhaps. Anything that happens in those accounts, you pay tax on every single year. So if you own a stock in a taxable account and it pays you a dividend, at the end of the year, your brokerage firm is sending you a 1099 for that dividend, and you have to pay tax on it in that year. So there's a variety of different types of accounts that people predominantly use to save for retirement, and they all have very different tax treatments. I like this strategy because it maximizes the benefits from a tax standpoint for using those accounts. So if we're going to rank them in terms of best tax benefit to future you, and we're taking a little bit of money out of these accounts every month or every quarter or every year to make up for that retirement income gap, the waterfall is one where you take money out of only your taxable investments first, and then once all your taxable investments are liquidated, you move on to the tax deferred money in your 401k, IRA, SEP IRA, simple IRA, accounts like that. And you don't take anything out of the Roth accounts until the first two types of accounts are completely liquidated and zeroed out. Now, there are reasons that you might want to switch the orders around, but for most people, they will maximize the tax benefits of these kinds of retirement accounts by using the retirement account waterfall. Again, things will intervene. You might be in your late 70s, and even though you have taxable money left, you still have to take a little bit out of your tax deferred IRA to satisfy mandatory distribution requirements, right? It gets a little bit of complex when we look at our all the nuances of our personal situations. But in general, touch the taxable accounts first, the tax deferred accounts second, and the tax exempt and Roth accounts third. Now, you may have noticed none of these three strategies we're talking about today are mutually exclusive. You could use all three if you wanted to, right? You could have a guardrail distribution strategy, which has more to do with how much is coming out of your accounts than it does minimizing your retirement income gap or prioritizing which account they come out of first. You could still work part-time and work to minimize to reduce your retirement income gap in the first place. And then three, when it does come time to take money out of the accounts, you could structure them in order of the waterfall that we just went over. There are a million shades of gray here. There are a lot more options than what we covered, but I wanted to mention them because they're three of my most favorite retirement income distribution topics to talk about. I hope you liked today's video. If you did, make sure to hit the like button at the bottom of the screen and subscribe to the channel to make sure that you're notified anytime we come out with something new. On top of that, if you're not sure whether you're on track financially, you might want to check out our free wealth gauge assessment. There's a link for it in the comments. Basically, you click the link, you take 3 minutes to fill out some basic financial information about yourself. We take that information and run it through our financial planning software. Then we send you via email a short private video of our findings and 30,000 foot observations.